I'm 27, and 2 years ago I developed a boutique micro resort called Live Oak Lake, and just sold that last year.
For how much?
$7 million.
Developing about 650 acres.
And how much are you going to spend on the entire project, do you think?
Right now we're budgeting about $12.5 million.
I'm proud to say I'm a seven-figure business.
You are a seven-figure entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I hit my first seven-figure in year 3.
So I made it to Denver, where I'll be for the next couple days, attending the Glamping Show. The purpose of being here is multifold. One of them is to see new equipment, see what's out there. But the real purpose is to meet other people that are either in the glamping industry with glampgrounds or they're looking to get into it. So it's an industry that I feel like I'm innately involved in, but also on the outside. When you run a business and you get so into it, you tend to self-isolate into your own business. And industry trade shows like this are really interesting because they allow you to sort of branch out and focus on connections and learning from others. So who am I here with today?
Isaac French.
And who is Isaac French?
I'm 27, and 2 years ago I developed a boutique micro resort called Live Oak Lake, and just sold that last year.
For how much?
$7 million.
$7 million. How many units was it?
7 units and cost $2.3 million all in. We built it in 9.5 months start to finish, and then sold it 2 years later.
Why and how did you get into this industry?
I grew up in a very industrious family, 9 siblings, was homeschooled, started businesses from the time I was 5 years old and up, worked in the family construction business, learning the trades from the ground up, was a general laborer sweeping floors in high school, eventually ran projects by the time I was 19. Had like all these different experiences, and then just had this idea for this village of charming cabins around the lake. Started looking for property, and the rest is history. Almost all of my brothers worked alongside me in the construction business, so we started a small general contracting company in 2009 in the middle of nowhere, so you can imagine how difficult that was, but we made a lot of good connections, and I just learned how businesses, how reputations are built brick by brick, working alongside my brothers and my dad in the company. And then when I went to build Live Oak Lake, I designed it, I built it in terms of like managing the project, but on a couple occasions, like I'd call one of my brothers up with a question about the best way to put a roof on or install windows or whatnot. So having their experience was definitely a help.
That's awesome. Let's dive into those economics a little bit, because you sold it for $7 million. Like, what do you do with that money, and how do you expand from there?
I feel like a kid in a candy shop right now because we sold and closed in October. It's almost a year ago. It's been such a whirlwind because, again, I built that project in less than a year, only operated it for about 18 months before selling it. And so, yes, it was a baptism by fire in real estate and marketing, social media, design, construction, but I feel like there's so much more to learn, and the experiential space is exploding across the world, but especially in this country. There's a huge opportunity for micro resorts, unique, one-of-a-kind stays, landscape hotels. Currently playing with the idea of incorporating some residential into the model as well, because if you're going to go and stay the night in a beautiful place that's just experience-rich, why wouldn't you want to live there? And also our generation, who doesn't care so much about luxury and is looking for those experiences, also doesn't really care about owning a home right now.
I think that's really interesting because COVID made a lot of people rethink like life versus vacation, and why wait to live the life that you want to live. When COVID struck, we left the city, we bought the motel, moved to the mountains, and like sort of lived our dream life. I even look back and like that was a very like fun time, and it's like, why not just do that all the time, right?
That's it. Our generation, like, seriously wants one thing, and that's lifetime memories and one-of-a-kind experiences.
We don't want things.
We don't want things.
Because what was your ADR? What was your average daily rate at Live Oak Lake?
$550, but that ranged all the way up to over $2,000 for some nights.
People would spend $2,000 to stay at your property.
A couple times it did happen, but regularly over $1,000. People ask, what's the secret sauce? And it's just this culmination of all these tiny little details that don't mean that much in and of themselves, but together just create that magic. So you like pull up to the gate and it feels like you're going into a different world.
If you were to give advice to somebody that's coming to you that wants to be Isaac French and build his own experiential hospitality property, what would you say?
Man, that's a good question. I guess I would say have a dream. You don't have to be special. You just need to have a dream and build for an audience of one, that's yourself, and let that dream become a conviction, because once that dream crystallizes into a conviction, you become a magnet for everything you need. So a lot of people think, well, I don't have money, well, I don't have experience, well, I don't have property, but those things are all secondary. Those things are very important, but those will come to someone who's just lit on fire with a passion, and that's what I became. Like, I became so passionate about my idea that the universe sort of conspired for my mission, and that applies to everybody else.
All right, last thing, you mentioned that you got 20 million views on a single X post.
I made a post about a train car that our family found and we bought for $3,000, and we spent $150,000 total. We transformed it into like this incredibly fully restored, unique experience. I spent 8 hours writing the thread. I stayed up almost all night, and it just was like a spur of the moment thing. And I spent about 60% of that time just writing the hook, which is like 3 sentences. The fun fact is I put a sentence in there that I had no idea would be jet fuel on the fire. I said, we found this old train car for $3,000. It was a cat-infested wreck. Well, I had no idea, like, a third of the entire population in the world, if you say those words, cat-infested wreck, I mean, they come after you. In full disclosure, I actually love cats. Like, we rehomed the cats, we didn't kill any cats. They read the entire thread to see, like, what happened to the cats, and then they all posted at the bottom.
Engagement.
The cats were the landlords. They should have kicked you out. All they did was dump jet fuel on the fire of what was already a viral post. But, like, so have those little slightly controversial takes, and you'll do really well.
So who am I here with today?
Bill Westmoreland.
What is your project?
Our project is developing about 650 acres. We're going to put cabins on it. We're going to create a resort.
What's the name of your project?
Creekside Falls. We came up with that because we have multiple waterfalls, and we check a lot of the boxes for the unique experience in nature. You know, we have over a mile-long bluff with 130, 140 foot climbing, 20 plus miles of hiking, all on property. It makes it extremely, extremely unique. There's one time of the year that we have hundreds of butterflies over these thistle plant. The whole place is just lit up with them. It's absolutely gorgeous.
650 acres is huge. How do you go from not having any hospitality business to having 650 acres?
I was looking for a piece of property to retire on, or something to do in my quasi-retirement. I use that very loosely because I've started several businesses, sold several businesses, and was looking for sort of my twilight tour, how I was going to skate off into the sunset to some extent. I had picked pretty much 3 directions I was going to go. Buy a yacht, a place in Puerto Rico to go chill out and, call home.
And you decided to torture yourself instead.
I love torture. Serial entrepreneur, it's just what we do, right? Found this piece of property, and once I found it, I was really thinking, this would be a shame to have such a beautiful, almost state park type setting and keep it all to myself.
How many units are you going to do?
We're looking to do right now in our early phase, 80 units, several different price points. Our average ADR is probably going to be somewhere around $800.
And how much are you going to spend on the entire project, do you think?
Right now we're budgeting about $12.5 million.
Of the companies that you started and sold before, what was the biggest one? How much did you make?
I started a residential development and a construction business. We took that right to the end, and luckily I just 2007 saw the writing on the walls and sold out and got out of that business. We peaked at about $25 million.
You've also been in the contracting construction business as well. Is that what you've been doing most recently?
Still am. My kids are now pretty much running that business for me. It's a blessing, to say the least. We are a national general contractor, licensed in about 42 states.
How big is that company now?
Right now we're doing about $20 million.
What advice would you give to the younger generations, like your children, about entrepreneurship or business?
It's all about the grind, man. On a daily basis, you have to invest everything you have in it. It's the work ethic side. Don't be afraid to take risk, number one. That's all I've done in my entire life. Since I was in the Marine Corps for 11 years. Once I got out of the Marine Corps, worked in corporate world for about a year and a half, realized that's not for me. Started my first business, grew that business very quickly in 7 years, and sold that business. And started a residential development and construction business. Got me into construction, way more than I thought I would be.
And the project that you're working on now is big budget. It's $12 million. But do you think people need millions of dollars to get started in business, or specifically even in this business?
Every business I ever started, I cash flowed. How to structure your business so that, you're getting advance payments. I mean, this business is prime for it. You're basically booking stuff and getting paid before you have the expense. Financing is not that difficult. I tell people all the time, don't let the money scare you. You'll get the money. And there's a lot of people. That friends and family thing will get you a long ways if you need it, for sure.
All right, so who am I with here today?
I'm Irene Wood. I am with the Fields of Michigan.
What is the Fields of Michigan and how did it come to be?
Okay, so for most people, they would kind of define it as a glamping resort, but I hate that word so much. So I just usually say it's outdoor hospitality. I was looking to do and start my own business. While I was kind of figuring out what that looked like, my husband and I took a trip. We did it out in Big Sky. We, got in an airplane, flew 2 hours, drove 4 hours to get to a tent in the middle of the woods. And I remember thinking to myself, these woods look just like the woods of Michigan. We get back, my husband's like, we should do this again. We should do it, but we should do it close. He's like, see if you can find anything. I couldn't find anything. And so he's like, well, Google harder. And in my mind, I'm like, what? I don't even know what Google harder means. Like, does it mean hit the keys harder? Like, I'm a smart person. I mean, I know all the search terms. I mean, Google does a really nice job of finding all those words for you. So we didn't find anything. And I remember thinking, how is that possible? And so I thought to myself, did I just find a gap in the market? So you have to be first to market to set the tone for the market so your consumers know what to expect. And as long as you do that, you'll outpace every competitor that comes in because it'll just be number two, like Burger King is number 2 to McDonald's.
Where did you find the land?
While this is all taking place, and I always say, if there's signs and you're looking for them, they're there. So my husband and I happened to be in Montana to do this trip. While we're there, my dad calls and says, hey, listen, I'm getting old and tired and I want to sell the family farm, and I called all your brothers and they don't want to buy it. And 5 brothers, I'm the only child.
Oh my gosh.
I know, the only girl. And so I was like, you know what, Dad, I'll take care of it. To be candid, my dad did sell it to us at a really good rate to keep it in the family. Mm-hmm. But I could see the potential of it way before he could. I could apply all the tricks of the trade of building and ag tourism, which I'm obsessed with, and put it to play for my own business.
Were you always thinking glamping?
I actually thought VRBO. Like, we'll VRBO it and make it like a little ag tour.
Like the actual farmhouse?
Yes, and it was booked. I also have to have like this distance between my home, where I sleep and breathe, and actually then where I go to work. So I would drive the dirt roads every day to see if there was anything like within tractor driving distance that I could pick up to do the expansion.
The land that you actually built the fields on was not the initial purchase from your father?
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. So I had been...
But you wouldn't have done it without that purchase because you were in that... Okay.
There's no way, because it was like one step, one light post led to the next light post, led to the next one.
How much have you actually had to put into this business to get it to where it is today?
We buy the farm for my dad outright, right? Okay. So I'm going to put that as like a separate expense.
And that's your home?
That's my home now. So now that's our home. So I'm driving the road in the tractor because I was like, the tractor has to get from my farm to this farm. Because whatever I buy, I have to be able to make money farming, because if nobody shows up, I still have to pay back the property.
Yep.
So I found a piece of property for sale by owner, and it was a blueberry farm. Uniquely, blueberries are harvested a little bit before grapes, but you can use the same equipment. So the same tractor, same sprayer, the same crews you can just use, you're just stacking them differently. So I was like, I'm gonna learn to be a blueberry farmer. I'm gonna be a blueberry farmer. So I called my husband, I'm like, hey, I found this piece of property for sale, $220,000, I think we should buy it. 30 acres. He was
30 acres for $220,000, and it was an operating blueberry farm at the time.
That's correct. So I'm like, how am I going to get money to actually do my project? I tell my husband I'm going to take a loan against the farmhouse. You can't tell banks that you do this, but I took a home equity loan against the farm that was in pristine shape, and I take that cash and I go and I start building out accommodations on this blueberry property.
How'd you buy the blueberry farm to start with?
With the blueberry farm, I put 20% down. Yep. So $40,000, then took a loan out for the rest. Then went and got a home equity loan.
The entrepreneurial dream. Stack the debt, baby.
I know. So then I went and got a home equity loan to actually build out the construction. The home equity loan was for $360,000.
And you had a blueberry farm that was going to generate $60,000 in blueberries a year? $54,000 in blueberries a year.
If I could convince people to handpick and get a little more money, it was going to be worth more.
So you bought it when the blueberries were done, so you weren't going to have revenue until probably July of next year?
July, August, yeah.
Okay.
So now we're in $360,000 to go do development.
Yep.
I was like, for every month that I'm not opening, on May 1st, I'm losing revenue. March 29th of 2019, Planning Commission approves the plan. We start construction on a piece of property that had no electric, no water, no sewer, big trucks.
So within a few weeks of the planning meeting, we were
hitting the ground. And then we opened up to our first guests in June with sewer, water, electric, a building, 10 accommodations.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Pandemic strikes, does it help you or hurt you?
So I think in that year on 10 sites, maybe we did $400,000 in revenue. Still great, not...
10 sites, $400,000 revenue, room revenue, and you weren't able to serve food. You probably weren't able to do like personal service of any
No
sort?
like yoga,
Yeah.
no massages.
Uh-huh.
Lots of revenue in rooms, and we were able to kind of extend the season. 100% occupancy, like literally if something canceled, we would post it on social media and somebody would rebook, and sometimes we had double bookings. So if somebody had COVID, they canceled, they lost that stay, then somebody else booked it, we would get double revenue.
You get double revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in many ways, pandemic was beneficial in so many different ways for businesses like this, even though it had the short-term impact.
Yes.
It did create a tidal wave of demand, getting those eyeballs to you initially, like in 2020, like people
For
were just
sure.
like finding these opportunities more. We're standing here today, 2024. How big is your business?
I'm proud to say I'm a 7-figure business.
You were a 7-figure entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I hit my first 7-figure in year 3.
Wow. And did you have to take on more debt to get there?
Never. So all I did was every single year I reinvested profits. There's something about consistency of simplicity. And so we were going to maintain that. What we did was we added accommodations, which was the easiest lift. 20,000 a unit. By the time you multiply it times 10 is 200,000, not inclusive of some of your septic. But if you're able to save that, that was generating revenue. And we had pre-sold that the year prior. So we opened up our reservations a year in advance. So we were taking, which you're not supposed to do, some cash.
Interest-free loan.
Yes. And then what we were doing is using that for our construction build out.
I mean, that's genius. And I think that is the best part of scaling a business like this, is because you already have the brand, you have the booking platform,
Yeah.
you add units, you take bookings for it, and then essentially those bookings can finance the build of it.
That's correct.
Yeah. What is one thing that you learned, one piece of advice that you got in the past that has made a big difference in how you're operating your business?
It actually came from another woman who was part of a family business. You know, her dad still runs it, but she's in the queue to kind of take over this, international plastic business. There's all this noise in my mind, and I'm not really sure, like, what direction I should go. And it's almost as if she hit me. And she was like, Irene, every day wake up, and for the love of God, just be laser focused.
Now, if you look back as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
what would be the one piece of advice you would give your younger self or somebody in the younger generation that's looking to do something like this?
I think everybody innately is an entrepreneur. My husband and I make investments in other people's businesses. We put money in the stock market. That's somebody else's business.
Yep.
And I remember wanting to do this business. My husband's like, Irene, we could put this money in the market. I'm like, just bet on me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm your best bet.
Yep.
So I think if you just really trust that you're the best bet, if you really are listening to data and you're inquisitive to research, you'll do great.
The fact that you can put money into a savings account or a 401k and hope to get 7-8% a year,
Yes.
and probably the return on yourself and your investment has been hundreds of percent a year.
The thing with the sole proprietorship or owning your own business is there's a lot of opportunity. You pay yourself, you pay your kids, you pay your taxes
Yep.
through it, you pay your insurances through it, you buy your gas through it, you buy your food through it, you pay for your travel that you otherwise would be paying on post-tax dollars. You're getting your bonus just by expensing a lot of stuff as you're supposed to through
Yep.
your own business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Last question, is there more units on your land? Is there more locations? What's next?
I don't know. I always built it with the idea that it would be scalable, that I could see a Fields of Vietnam, I could see a Fields of Wisconsin, and I always envisioned it would be in a role where I would, almost like in a franchise role, where we would be supportive, give all the tricks in the trade in exchange for, I don't want to use the word rev share, but some sort of portions of proceeds, because centralized services, marketing, advertising, legal, human resources, those are the largest cost burdens to anybody that wants to do something like this. To be able to do that for somebody or others would be really fun, and it would be a fun community to be a part of. But the challenge is that I know how hard this was, how expensive it was to do, a total build out, and then to operate it every day. It's a huge commitment. You don't get the rewards without the work. I can't think of anything I've ever done in my life where I was rewarded for something where I didn't work for.
We have to end on that.
Okay.
That was so good. And that was the good closer. Awesome.